episode 4 of the Tales of Crisis. I am joined, as usual, by my host, Chalmers. Chalmers, how are you?
I'm not too bad, thank you. You keeping well?
Indeed I am, yes. The weather's improving, we're tentatively coming out of lockdown, and we are, in the UK, close, very close, to some real life gaming.
Yes, can't wait. It's we'll go over it a little bit today, but we've done a couple of games in real life so far. But I'm looking forward to actually having people in the house and not having to stare up into the sky of black clouds and praying it stays dry for another round.
Yes, and that's what we did on our second one. So yeah, that's the main theme of today is getting ready for real life. And that's what we're going to be going through as the main topic for the day is our games that we've played in real life. As Chalmers mentioned, we've managed to fit in a couple, and you know how that's different to TTS, how we've what the different experiences are, some of the things that we've started to pick up that previously we never needed, and how we feel that's impacted us. Before we get onto all that, there was some news. So I think we start with there are two main bits of news recently, and the big one was the banned and restricted list.
Yes.
So Chalmers, what were your views on the banned and restricted list?
I was surprised that an actual Crisis is on the restricted list. It kind of felt like a kind of 1-2 punch almost. So Hired Muscle obviously went into the completely banned list, which I can kind of understand why, especially if you've got a play that you can get up and like move all of your opponent's civilian tokens as well. But the fact that they put, I'm trying to think which Panic into restrict.
Panic
Yeah,
grips the city.
Panic grips the city into restricted as well. That has the 4 civilian tokens. Seemed a little bit kind of quite heavy-handed. Like if you're banning Hired Muscle, it kind of gets rid of that issue.
Yes, and it did feel a bit of a 1-2 punch, but I think listening to the producers, listening to the game designers when they were talking this through, it seemed that Hired Muscle brought to attention the issue with Panic, and I can see both sides to it. I was, similar to yourself, very surprised to see a Crisis be part of that list. Very much thought it was just going to be Team Tactics cards. For those that are a little confused as to what we're talking about, there is in the organized play section of the Atomic Mass Games website for Marvel, there is a banned and restricted list, and this is essentially a list of cards that have been produced, have been out there in the wild, and are recommended as either banned, so not to be used in organized play. Doesn't mean that you can't use them between yourselves as friends, locally, socially. There's nothing to stop you from using those. And then there's restricted, which are the ones where, again, it's recommended you only have 2 restricted cards in your roster. So originally that was just Team Tactics cards, and that was fine because you've only got 8 Team Tactics cards, so having 2 that restricted wasn't too difficult. But as Chalmers has mentioned, we now have a Crisis within that banned and restricted list, which is a very interesting dynamic because it means that essentially if you go with that, you really are limiting your Team Tactics cards.
Yeah. We also got another tactic card. All you've got added restricted as well, which I know it has been seeing more play.
Again, I think all you've got comes from a number of areas. So for those that aren't aware, all you've got is essentially allows you to activate again. So you activate, you do what you're going to do, and then normally you would put an activated token on your character, you play all you've got, and essentially you get to go again. That tails nicely with a card that's already on the restricted list, Doom Prophecy, which essentially allows you to add your physical defense to your attacks, which then goes nicely with field dressing, because one of the downsides of all you've got is that once you've gone again, you essentially then become either dazed or KO, depending on which side you're on at the time. So having field dressing allowed you to run Doom Prophecy to increase the strength of your attacks. You would then play all you've got, which would then allow you to go again, all with those additional dice from Doom Prophecy. And if you weren't injured at that point, you would then go to a dazed status, and then you could play field dressing, which would essentially then take you back off of that dazed status, and you could work yourself back up. And I think it was the fact that the combination of the three still happened by only putting field dressing and Doom Prophecy on the restricted list. It meant that you could still play that combination. And
Yep.
whilst it can be a fun combination, having field dressing alongside those two in your deck kind of took away the potential downside to it.
Yeah, definitely. It's especially if you do it on a character that's activating last, so there's no way that your opponent can then do the extra damage to daze them. It is a strong combo. I kind of understand probably why it is in there. It will be interesting to see kind of over time what other cards get added to the restricted file if you start seeing them kind of show up more and more.
Yes, and I think it'll be interesting to see if anything ever comes off, because they've said, quite openly that cards can move from restricted into banned, or they could move from restricted into the great wide world. I don't see anything ever coming off banned. I don't think we'll get to that point, because I think in essence banned is saying the card has some fundamental flaws to it.
Yeah.
But I could see restricted coming off as the game changes, as the meta changes, as we shift. I think one of the things for me about the whole concept is I think it's fantastic. I think it keeps the game fresh. It means that you never lose. One of the things they've said is they won't put characters on this list, and it means you never lose the ability to use your favorite character. You don't have that horrible feeling of you spent ages painting up a particular character and all of a sudden you can't use it. But it does allow slight tweaks to the game that can have a massive impact. If you're seeing something like hired muscle dominate the game, then you can do something to change that.
Yeah. It's surprising it's gone straight into banned and not just restricted to start off with.
Yes, but and again, I highly recommend anybody who hasn't to check out one of the many podcasts that the two Wills that are essentially the game developers were on. One of the interesting points they raised, and I totally agree, is one of the best counters to hired muscle is hired muscle.
Yeah.
So if you restrict hired muscle, then those that want to play it are going to say, fine, I'll take the hit and take hired muscle, but then essentially you're doubling down, because those that are only taking hired muscle as protection against hired muscle then have even more of a negative impact on their roster. So again, I was in the initial stages, I was very much on the same page. I was like, well, they should have just restricted it and seen what impact that was, but I kind of understood that logic.
Yeah. No, that does make sense. And I suppose they're the game developers, so they can kind of see more issues than what we see of just playing the game itself. Um,
Yeah, and I found it really interesting listening to them, and it was refreshing to have games developers come out and just talk about it, talk about the process, talk about their thinkings behind it. They're really honest and open about, as much as they want to be perfect, they're humans and they're never going to get it right all the time. I think if you look at, we've had a pretty hectic year and a half's worth of releases. I lost count how many boxes are out there, but there's probably a good 40, 50 boxes now, which means there's a lot more characters, a lot more cards. You look at the current list and you've got, what, 7 restricted and 2 banned?
Yeah, there's not many for all of those extra cards. I
Yeah,
think there's over 100 tactic cards now, I think.
I would have thought so at least.
I'm trying to think. Let's have a look. MCP DB. 115 team tactic cards.
There you go. And you've got, what, 6 restricted
Yeah.
and 2 banned. So I don't think it's a bad ratio, and I think, as the game changes, as they want to do different things, take the game in different directions, you'll see this list morph, and I think it's great. It keeps it fresh. One thing I would also say is, as much as it is put out there as nobody's going to stop you from playing these cards, I would suggest that if you're new to the game, if you're just looking for friendly games, etc., do take a look at this. This isn't just for the competitive people, because this gives you an indication of where certain things are broken. So yeah, if you're playing a narrative game and there's a narrative reason to have hired muscle or drop off, which are the 2 banned cards, get yourself away, crack on. But if you're just looking for a fun game with your mates, probably best not to bother taking banned cards, because they're banned for a reason.
Yeah.
And it was an interesting looking at some of the conversations on Facebook about, oh, these competitive players ruining it for everybody else, this, that, and the other. And you kind of look at it and think, well, no, I think if you are just looking for a fun game with your mates, then it is worth checking out this list, because there's a reason these cards are there. They can end up spoiling a game quite easily.
Yeah, it's not going to be a fun game if you rock up and you go, right, I'm going to have patch up, med pack, field dressing, all you've got, and Doom Prophecy, and those are my 5
Yeah.
5 restricted cards.
Absolutely. So I do think it's worth looking at it. Maybe you flex, maybe you agree with your mates. It's your game, your hobby. Do as you wish. But I do think it's not a matter of, I'm not a competitive player, I don't need to look at the list. It's worth looking at and thinking, why are they on that list? Probably because it's a negative play experience. Therefore, if I'm playing with my mates, probably don't want to take them.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was the big news, and like I say, there's a number of episodes out there from others who've got the game designers on, and I'd suggest going and checking those out, because it's really interesting and insightful to hear those. In other news, we've also had, well, since our last episode, we've had a number of cards spoiled. Unfortunately, we've had a delay in the UK of models actually reaching the stores, and I think we're probably 2 months behind where we thought we would be.
Guess I don't think we've had a single release since the last episode, so
No, I
it's
think
kind of been good for my bank balance, but it
yes,
has been a shame.
it has, but we've had a lot spoiled, and which makes it feel like actually we've had quite a bit. But yeah, I think again that age-old thing of because we're not playing in real life, them not actually being here hasn't necessarily impacted us
No.
as much, because we are seeing those cards on TTS. I've been running X-Force on TTS
Yeah, I
in our
faced
recent league.
Mysterio a couple of weeks ago,
Yes,
which was
Lee's gone all in on the
yeah, that
Spider
was
Foes.
he's pretty bonkers.
He is, and I've found Carnage to be worse than that.
Oh right, okay. I've not faced Carnage yet.
Carnage was interesting, to say the least. I think Lee's had some really good experiences with Carnage. But yeah, I think the last release we've actually seen in this country was probably Inhumans, which would have been
Yeah, it was.
February,
Yeah.
and we're recording this early May. So we're desperate, and I think we are going to get a flood of them once it kicks in. I know the next couple of months is pretty hectic, but
Think in a couple of weeks' time we've got Sin and Viper, Deadpool and Bob, Cable and Domino.
I don't think X-Force is going to be this month.
Are
The
they
last
not?
I looked at, no, I think it's Sin and Viper. It's
Oh, it's Mr. Sinister
Sinister,
and
and then the twins, which takes us on nicely to the twins,
the twins.
Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. So
Yes.
they have both been spoiled, shared, leaked, whatever you want to call it.
Revealed.
Revealed,
Revealed's the
yes,
best
we'll
word, I
go with
think.
that one. From Atomic Mass Games in the last couple of days. So first impressions, Chalmers.
I love both of them. I think Quicksilver he's tricksy, but he's very situational. I think that's the best way to describe it.
Yep.
Um, so let's do Quicksilver first, I think,
Yep.
between the two. So he's free threat, with 5 health, and he's got 3s across the board for defense. He's a long mover, which, yeah, no one's surprised at that. And he's size 2. And then he's got this is whereabouts. I'm trying to look at the bit of a blurry image. He has a 4 dice supersonic strike as his kind of builder that's range 3. So he's got a bit of threat to him. Range 3 for a normal physical attack is quite nice. He gains power equal to the damage dealt. And then and this is whereabouts I'm trying to look, it's a crit and a shield, is that?
I'll be honest, the images I've seen, it's hard to make out, but yeah, I think it's a shield based on the
Yeah. On a
blurry image.
crit and a shield, it looks like it's dash. So after the attack's resolved, the character may advance small. I kind of know why it's only small, because movement is key in this game, but if he's Quicksilver and you're giving him dash, that should at least be medium, and if not, it should be long, to be fair. Because, yeah, it's not really a dash when you're Quicksilver going small, is it?
No, and I thought the same. I thought, one, the fact that it's small seemed a little off, and the fact that it's a 4 dice strike.
And
I
you need,
don't know what the chances are to get it, but to need two
yeah,
to
two
trigger
specifics
it,
to
two
get it. It's,
specifics. I think that really, if it was just on a wild, then fine. You don't want to be giving him a medium move on a wild because he's going to be all over the shop. But yeah, when it's as specific as that, I wouldn't be surprised if it had been maybe a medium move or something along those
yeah.
lines.
And then he's got another random trigger, which is on a crit and a wild, I think it is.
Yeah.
After the attack resolved, this character may make a supersonic strike attack. This attack may not target the original target character. Now, this doesn't then have velocity, so in theory he could just bounce between multiple characters. It probably needs an FAQ whether you can go between 2 characters back and forth if you suddenly rolled like a god and got a crit in a wild every single time, because it says, like, you make a supersonic strike attack, so you start this attack sequence again, and then it says this attack may not target the original target character. So
Yeah, and it needs to go one way or the other, because if that original target character is seen as the very first one, then that doesn't stop you on just doing
just
velocity
bouncing
on
between
the
2 of
same.
them.
Well, no,
Yeah,
I was thinking, like, if you say, the first one you target is the original, and then when you move to a second one you can't go back to the original, then reading that word for word would mean that you could just keep hitting the second one because they're not classed
yeah,
as
true.
the original. So yeah, I think there probably needs a bit of clarity there, and I'm sure it'll come up in the forums
Yeah.
as
Um,
to how that works.
then his spender is only 2 power, if I can read that correctly,
Yep.
which is kind of crazy for a spender. And it's 6 dice physical, and it's a cyclonic vortex, and it's range 3 again. And basically, after the attack is resolved, the character may advance medium. So that one's got the guaranteed medium. That's why with dash I was a bit surprised it's only a small move. I suppose if you get a crit, a wild, and a shield, which I mean is very, very situational, you can attack someone, then do a dash like further small, and then attack someone else within 3, but it's a little bit weird. I suppose the medium might be a bit too strong there. But yeah, having a kind of built-in medium for 2 power is actually quite good for that one. And 6 dice is pretty decent. So his attacks are not too bad. Like I said, the supersonic strike a little bit random. Like,
Yeah, I suppose my issue with the supersonic strike is the 4 dice and the randomness of it. I think, you know, if you were to look at that and you were to start to plan what you wanted to do with him, it's very difficult. Obviously, it's a dice game and it's always difficult to know exactly what you're going to end up with. But you could start to make some plans. You're not going to be able to bank on dash or velocity.
no.
They're going to be nice bonuses if they happen, but in reality, you're not going to be able to. Now, yes, you can get some rerolls on him, which will increase your chances, and yes, you can look at ways to increase the number of dice, getting the likes of Thanos alongside him, those kind of things. There are ways to increase that. Maybe give him a couple of hammers. But do you really want to do all that for that? And I
Yeah.
suppose the velocity is going to be the kicker. If that is something that can just keep going, then maybe you do, or maybe you start to do things like Doom Prophecy on him.
Yeah.
We just talked about it, but that would be a good way to get an extra 3 dice in there.
It is. But then when you I'm thinking of like characters like Black Widow, Agent of Shield, who's got the rapid fire pistols and has a built-in. You can do another rapid fire pistols. Like, why does this one then have to go off on a like 2 dice specific symbols?
Yes.
Like, it would make sense because it's a supersonic strike and he's so quick that you attack one and then you can attack someone else, but you have to target someone else. And
Yes.
then suddenly a 4 dice physical on that is actually not too bad.
Yeah, and again, that's why I think the velocity you'll be allowed to do it multiple to bounce between targets or to do things like that, because I think otherwise it is very limited. If it's like you can only ever attack somebody once with it, then I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a funny one. It's interesting to see what they've done, and it'll be interesting to see how people find ways to increase their chances of getting it. Because if you do, on the face of it, if you are able to do that strike with the dash and velocity, you could definitely start to move yourself around the board, hitting multiple characters.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
But it's that core 4 dice. The spender's all right. I mean, 6 dice, range 3.
With
It's
an
not
auto
bad.
medium advance, yes.
Yeah, auto medium advance, always good to get you out of trouble. You can move up, do it, run
Yeah.
away. You can move up, do it, move on to an objective. There's movement is key in this game, and I think having that medium advance afterwards is great, and it's not dice dependent.
No.
For 2 power, not too bad.
Yeah. It is not bad for 2 power. And on a superpowers, so obviously for movement for him, so he's got Speedster, which is a 2 power superhero ability, and if the character is not holding an objective token, it advances long, and that superpower can only be used once per turn. So he could potentially move 3 longs in a turn if he's not holding objectives. Whether he needs to do that, because he's not exactly the most survivable character out there. So moving 3 longs is
Yeah,
yeah.
I can't see it that often, especially considering it's not holding an objective token. If there wasn't that, then you could say, oh, well, he's picked an objective token, he wants to run and hide in the corner. You've got some.
Or you use them in herbs and run over, grab the herb, and then
Yeah,
get a long across halfway back the table. But yeah, I suppose there will be tricks into it. I mean, back objectives that have not being defended, he could then suddenly dash from one side of the table to the other, and grab him.
yeah. Again, I can't think of any map setup where you need 3 longs. I don't know whether you can go from bottom left to top right on a B scenario.
Probably not in 2. You probably could do it in
You might
3.
need the 3, yeah. So
Yeah.
there is that. And the other thing I'm thinking is, if you want to go get an objective token, that's fine. You use this first. You
Yeah.
move long, pick it up, and then you double move again. So it will definitely be useful. I think, considering he's got the long move anyway, it is getting those 3 long moves. There's going to be situations where it's going to be great. It essentially you'll be playing against somebody, and there'll be a mass of bodies, and somebody will get dazed, drop a token, and then next thing you know, essentially he's on the other side of the board with that token. And then, like I
Yeah.
say, that's going to be majorly powerful on those ones where there's a single token like Kree Power Core worth 2 victory points. That's the only one on the board. You've all congregated around, let's say you're playing Gamma or Portals, and you're all in the middle. He just shoots off on the side.
Yeah.
You know.
He just pings around holding it.
Yeah.
Then he's got Catch Me If You Can, which is a 3 power ability. When the character is targeted by an attack, you can use the superpower. The character advances small. If at the end of the advance, the character is outside the attack's range or the attacker's line of sight, the attack ends. If the attacker's activation and the attack did not target multiple characters, the target may make another action, and that can only be used once per turn.
Yeah. So
Again, I would why not long? Like,
well,
if
I think that
okay,
only
I know
super
why not
powerful.
long. Yeah,
Even medium, I think, would be, medium would allow you to get a long way outside of range. So I think,
that's the whole point, though. Like, that's the whole thing. Catch me if you can. Like, catch me if you can. Then going small is kind of
yeah, but having used Loki with Loki's Trickster, there's been a number of times where just that small movement is enough to get out.
yeah.
There's enough there to be able to allow you to get out of range. I mean, a lot.
I suppose you're going front to back base as well, so it's not.
Yeah, the most common attack is range 2.
Yeah,
So just a short move will get you out of range 2,
enough to get out.
9 times out of 10. So I think, yeah, you start to make it a medium, and all of a sudden you're kind of getting out of range 3 attacks unless you're base to base. So I can totally see why it's only short. Like I say, having used Loki's Trickster, which is, I believe, word for word the same as this, it
Yeah,
is a powerful
yeah,
ability. And the one thing to be aware of is the way in which you pay for powers for this. So when you're trying to pay for powers, these kind of defensive tech, you don't end up losing your power when you pay for it. And I think this is one that came up the other day, on this, where essentially if you were to pay your power to do an attack and then they trickster away or can't catch me away, you don't lose that power.
yeah,
That's something that kind of came up in one of our games the other day. There are quite a few interesting interactions with that one. And if you want more, again, go on the Atomic Mass Games rules forums, search for Loki's Trickster, because like I say, it's literally word for word the same, and that'll give you a good rundown of how those rules interact.
yeah. There's a few characters that have this kind of similar ability.
Yeah.
But no, he's not too bad. He's got supersonic reflexes as well. So when defending against a physical or energy attack, or making a dodge roll, it may reroll up to 2 of its defense or dodge dice. So it's the same as Miles Morales, who has. Is it Miles Morales or Spider-Man? Which one has
It's
it?
Miles Morales that's got it, I'm
Miles
pretty
Morales.
sure.
It's got that. So that's not too bad. I mean, he's still only 3 defense, which rerolling 2 can be okay, but like
It doesn't happen as often as you
no.
would think.
I used Web Warriors on the weekend, and
Yeah,
re-rolling 2 dice when you're rolling 3 is like
absolutely.
doesn't really kind of generate you anything better.
Overall, he's a solid 3. He's going to be
Yeah,
fast. He's going to be annoying. He's going to get around the board.
yeah,
He's
he's
not
got
going to
Wall
do.
Crawler as well, so
Yeah,
it ignores terrain. Well, not ignores terrain, but you can climb up terrain without having to do a climb action. So yeah, he's
Yeah.
pretty solid for a free threat.
Yeah. Not likely to break into my roster, but I could see him. It depends what his affiliations are. But I can see him definitely making his way into a number of rosters. I think my only concern is this power generation. He's,
Yeah,
that builder, unless you're managing to add extra dice to it, bit uninspiring at only 4 dice. Yeah, you could get lucky and get a couple of velocities off. Maybe that builds you a little bit more, but I think that would be my one concern on him would be where is he getting that power in order to do the likes of supersonic can't catch me. And the flip side of those reflexes, yes, it means he stays alive for longer, but it reduces the amount of power he's gonna get because he's not getting as damaged.
certainly. Yeah. But let's go on to the tasty one, shall we?
The twin
Let's go on to
sister.
the sister. Scarlet Witch is a 5 threat character, 6 health and a medium move and size 2. She's got 3 physical defense, 4 mystical and energy defense, so not too bad. Would have probably thought maybe better mystical over energy, but I'm not going to complain at 4 energy, so not too bad.
No, like you say, solid, not particularly uninspiring. There's nothing you look at that and go, oh, what? It's a solid for a 5 threat.
Definitely. Her builder is a range 4 mystical 6 dice attack called Hexbolt, and you gain power equal to the damage dealt. So already 6 dice at range 4 is and mystical is very nice. Then she has Chaos Magic, which happens on a skull. So after the attack is resolved, for each skull in the attack roll, the target character gains one of the following special conditions: bleed, hex, incinerate, or poison. So this is amazing because I love rolling skulls. So
Yeah,
if I can chuck a load of special conditions on instead, then that's really good. No, I do like that because it means that those, like I said, those skulls that you normally are actually a kind of a benefit for her. I mean, 6 dice, you're probably going to get at least one. So yeah, I mean, incinerate is becoming my most favoured special condition, just for one less defense dice. It's so good.
yeah,
So
it makes a big difference. I think Hexbolt is a very solid builder. You look at Modok, same kind of builder that Modok's got. Yes,
yeah,
you don't get the rerolls that he does, but it's a fantastic builder, and I don't think she's going to have any issue gaining power from that.
definitely, and she needs it because her spender is 6 power. It's again at range 3 this time, but it's 8 dice and it's Cruel Twist. The defending character does not add crit results in its defense roll to its total successes and cannot add additional dice to its defense roll as a result of crit results. So basically, you just ignore all crits; they count as fails.
Yeah, so crits counts as fails, and you don't get the exploding
You don't get
dice.
extra dice, so
No.
you're looking for wilds and shields then.
And I suppose I wonder how that interacts with the reality gem.
Ooh, that's a good question.
At what point does the skull become a crit, and when does this kick in? So that's an interesting one. But yeah,
Yeah. And then again on a skull, it's got a special condition called reality contortion. And it's basically a pierce ability. So you change one of the defending characters. For some reason, it's got crit in here. I don't know why you would change that.
yeah, no, I noticed that as well, and I thought it was a bit odd as to why would you change a crit considering the crits don't
Count.
count.
Yeah.
Um,
So you change crits, wilds, and shields for each.
who
So
knows
it
what's
makes
around the corner at which point that will become
Yeah, so does that mean no matter how many skulls you roll, change one of the defending character's crit, shield, or wild results to a blank?
Yes. So it's not one per
Not one
skull.
per
It's
skull, it's
it's
literally what,
yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Same as when you see a wild and it says, that triggers something. It's
Yeah.
yeah. It needs to
So
say per. It would need to call out one per.
yeah. So that's a pretty strong spender, to be fair. 8 dice and you're not giving your opponent crit. It's like, especially if you can get an incinerate on them as well and lowering their defense dice already.
Oh yeah, it's huge. I mean, you take out the crits, take out the exploding dice. That really stops your opponent from spiking in their defense roll.
Yeah.
That you can't spike if you can't get crits. Then you're looking at also reality contortion, which on 8 dice, that's where the stats would say you theoretically you get one. You've got 1 in 8 chance of getting a
Yep.
skull. So yes, you've got a good chance of getting a skull. So that's going to take away one of their successes. It's interesting that actually, you know, blanks for some defending characters will class as successes. So you could potentially, I'm not sure why you would want to, but you could potentially change a crit to a blank and to make it class as a success. If perhaps for some reason you didn't want to daze somebody, but you want to take everything else off,
Yeah, I don't know why
can't.
you would do that, but
Yeah, but yeah, that's an interesting kind of set of circumstances.
actually it doesn't say you may, it says change one of the defending characters, so you have to do it if you roll a skull.
That's interesting. Yes, you're right. It doesn't say may. So if you were within 2 of, say, a Koye,
Yeah.
but this is testing my knowledge here. I'm pretty sure most of these, and I think Okoye's is only on physical and energy
Yeah, because
attacks.
these are all mystical,
These
so
are all mystical. So it may well be that that does not.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, a lot of characters in the game don't have strong mystical defense anyway. Um, so yeah, if you're if you're not giving them crits and you can change stuff to blanks, then and you can get an incinerate on beforehand, yeah, she's gonna be
yeah,
quite strong. Um,
martial artist is physical and energy for
yeah,
Okoye. Yeah, interesting that, even though it's changing them to blanks at the moment, I think for a lot of those that class blanks as successes, you're getting around that. So,
yeah.
yep.
So superhero abilities. She's got telekinesis, which is 3 power, and you can pick a terrain. Choose an interactive terrain feature 4 or less within 3 and throw it medium. So it's a good size terrain piece. It's a good range as well, medium, and it's also range 3 as well. So overall, that's pretty solid for 3 power. Do
Um,
you not like it?
Disappointing that it's only a terrain feature and not a character.
Yeah, I
If you're
had a
paying
game
three
last night
power,
with
you know, pretty sure Angela's is
and
2 power, and that's exactly the same.
Angela's is it's 2 power, but I think it's within 2. Yeah, it's within 2 because I used it last night. Um,
Right.
and yeah, that was the thing that caught me because I'm so used
Yeah.
to every character having
Size
throw
4 or
enemy
less.
characters.
Throws it medium, but yeah, you've got to be within 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that you may be missing out on not being able to move characters, and I think that's one of the things I would say about her as we
Yeah.
get onto it. But
Um, she's got Curse as well, which is a 2 power superhero ability. When the character is damaged by an enemy effect, after the effect is resolved, you may use the superpower. The attacking character gains Judgment Special Condition, so they won't gain power when suffering damage from enemy attacks, which is really good. Like for those characters that really need power, yeah, that'll be kind of massive on certain ones.
yes, I think Judgment is. We've only seen it so far on Ronan, I
Yeah,
think it is a huge
it's massive.
impact. We don't see Ronan so much these days, so it's kind of fallen out of favor in general. But yeah, absolutely, Judgment is a very impactful special condition that you really want to try and shake.
I put I was running Guardians last week against Brotherhood and put Judgment on Magneto
Yep, huge.
and just couldn't he couldn't do anything. He was just like just got no power, can't do anything.
Yeah,
Then you just chuck every attack into him and he's just yeah powerless. um, so really good. I mean 2 power as well. It's decent.
yeah, and because it's when this character is damaged by an enemy effect, the chances are you're going to have taken some damage, so you're going to get some power.
Yeah,
Realistically, as long as you had 1 power, if this has happened to you, then you can do it.
yeah,
So yeah, I think that that's pretty easy to do as such.
yeah. And then we've got 2 kind of passive superhero abilities. You've got Chosen of, I'm trying to read this now, Chthon. Is that right?
Well, I'll let you go with that. I'm not going
Yeah,
to try
Chthon.
and
My eyes. I'm blind in one eye and I'm trying to read this. This isn't good. When defending, attacking, or dodging, this character adds skull results to its rolls to successes.
yeah. So running theme there. Skulls are good for
Skulls
Scarlet
are
Witch.
good for Scarlet Witch, which
Yep.
is really nice. And then she's got Hexfield as well. Enemy characters performing a shake action within 3 of this character may not remove the Hex, Judgment, or Poison special conditions.
And I think that is huge because
That is
that
massive.
that's the one for me that I think kind of flips it, because if somebody goes and attacks you and you stick curse on them, then they're within 3 and they can't shake it. It's going to cause them major issues, especially in those compact scenarios. Your E's and your C's. It's
It's not even compact. I mean, size 3 is pretty big on the tabletop.
it's
Like,
it, it's
it's
not
a big bubble.
insignificant. But you can get out of it, but then you can't really attack her. So
Yeah,
she then can sit at range 4, um, pinging around with a builder at range 4, which is great. And you most characters can't go back at her. I
yeah.
think all in all, I think she's a super solid character that's gonna find her way into a lot of
Oh, definitely. She's
rosters. I think we know that she's definitely going to be in Brotherhood. I think her and Magneto together, yes, it's 11 threat, but we've seen enough rosters where they're running Magneto and MODOK together. I think she will replace MODOK in that scenario because she'll be an affiliated character and she can probably put out the same amount of damage potential as MODOK when you take her in total.
yeah, and she's got better move. She's got flight as well. Um, she's medium move against Modoc's small move, so you've got that as well. Yeah, I think it's going to be really good.
I think the disappointment, as somebody who likes to play more controlling than a necessarily aggressive style of play, neither of these have even got a push, yet alone a throw
No,
on
yeah,
the card at all. So that there's no pushes off attacks, there's no throws off attacks, there's no special superpowers that allow you to move your opponent, there's no bow to the will of MODOK style. There's nothing in there to allow you to move your opponent around, which I think would probably be the one bit of it that I looked at and I kind of felt for 5 threat, I'd want them doing a little bit more, but then that that's
you're being
depends on,
greedy.
well, it depends on your play style. I can see a lot of
Yeah,
people
no,
putting
I know
these
what you
to
mean.
real use and causing havoc and just wiping teams out as opposed to trying to move them around. And that's great.
Yeah. And we don't know what the team tactic cards are like for these as well. They might have one where they can team up and throw someone, or they can do something like that. So,
Yep.
um, yeah, it's just occurred to me that with the chosen Chthon, she's adding skull results to successes. So you're getting that chaos magic and reality contortion going off, but they're also counting as successes as well. So there's kind of no downside of rolling skulls in this.
No, and you guarantee that for the if you're rolling for I don't know Magneto who gets rerolls, you'll roll a load of skulls, and then when you get to Scarlet Witch, you'll roll it and you won't get any skulls. But
Yeah.
that's the joy of a dice game. Yeah, I think she's a solid aggressive character that doesn't need to be up close. That range 4 I think is key. Range 3 is a nice sweet spot for her, stopping you from getting rid of those judgments. The judgment didn't have a range on it, which was interesting. So, even if Shuri's trying to attack you at range 5, you can stick it on her. I'm sure
Yep.
that'll probably be the best choice, but you can do it. Yeah, all round, very, very good.
Very solid characters. So looking forward to them coming out. Well, I mean, I'll definitely be picking them up anyway because I'm getting all of them. But
You're like a
yeah,
magpie, aren't you? All the
yeah,
shiny new. I'll pick them up in time. They're not at the top of my list of ones to pick up, but I suppose a lot of that will depend on team tactics cards, as you say. If there's something in there that I look at and think, oh, maybe,
I need that. Yeah,
yeah. But definitely a nice, solid pair and a good addition to the game, and very thematic as well. I think both of them kind of you look at them both and kind of think, yeah, that's about right.
yeah,
So moving on to the main topic, real life. As we've mentioned, we've managed to get 2 real life games in. So I came across to yours and we played in your back garden
yeah.
week and a bit ago. That was our first game. So that was my second game in real life, and that was your first game in real life. My first game was the first game I ever played of MCP, and we got most of the rules wrong, and that was way back when. So I kind of, caveat it with that's my second game, but in reality, that's the first time I've played in real life, haven't really known what we were doing. I wasn't popping tokens out of the card. I'd managed to pop them out in advance. How did you feel the difference between playing in real life, having played on TTS for the last couple of months?
Um, you know what? After playing on TTS for so long, it kind of felt quite natural playing the actual physical game. Um, things like movement tokens look a lot bigger on TTS than they do in real life.
Yep.
Because I had like a couple of long movers, I was like, oh yeah, no, that'd be great. And then like actually put down a long movement token on a table, and you're like, it's not actually as big as what it looked like on the screen.
Yeah.
It kind of looks like it's almost half a board size. But no, you know what? It made me realize how much the TTS mod like is amazing for actually just giving you that game context. I think the only one, well, okay, there's 2 big differences. One, obviously, there's no buttons at the bottom to do your power phase and cleanup phase, so
Yep.
that takes a little bit of time to obviously get used to and going through it. And in the cleanup phase, remembering I need to turn these characters over and remove those bits and it's a bit more bookkeeping. The one thing I think will take a bit of time with those movement and range rulers is it's a lot harder to put them on a physical table and work out where characters are going than it is on the TTS mod that literally like snaps to a character, and then you can zoom in and go around to the side and see exactly where those measurements are and what range is there against a character like enemy character that you want to target. Especially if they're on a building and you're like down below and you're trying to work out what the range is and whatnot. So that takes a little bit more time, but no, it was nice and easy. I mean, for like we said, our first proper game, we did it in what, less than 2 hours?
Yeah, I think it was, I suppose to me, 2 main things. One is, as you touched on there, it's not going to be as accurate, it's not going to be as precise. You will get scenery getting nudged, you'll get models nudged. Same thing as you would see in AOS or any other games we've played in real life. And I think if you look at some of the top end games in the finals on TTS, they're very precise. You see the players doing a lot of measuring and, as you say, going from different angles to get very precise measurements. That's not to say that you can't do similar in real life, but it won't be to the same level. I still expect the top players, and for any game you see, the top players do a lot of measuring so that they know exactly what can go where. But yeah, you will get that natural inconsistency, shall we say, of
Yeah.
where things, oh, I've knocked this, knocked that, and like you say, that you don't have that lovely shadow that you do in TTS.
No.
Um, the flip side of it, and again, I think you will see a lot of getting used to a lot of, right, we'll just move this piece of scenery so I can lay that flat to get it right. Okay, fine, let's put that piece of scenery back. And I did that a little bit in AOS, but you didn't tend to get it to the same extent because it was less pieces of scenery and they were less impactful. I think the flip side of it is I was surprised how easy it was, and I think you're right. The TTS mod prepares you very well for real life.
Yeah.
I was concerned with some of the things that are, like you say, the cleanup button, the power button, they're not there. The power button takes 2 seconds. It's no real difference. The cleanup I actually found easier in real life than pressing the button because often I forget to put days tokens or somebody puts the activated token in the wrong order and then the priority token moves and you're looking at it
Yeah,
and
yeah.
go, I didn't think I had. No, I've got priority. Why is he giving me priority? There's a couple of things in there that you kind of go, oh, all right. Um, but all in all, I liked the fact that you can. It's a bit like watching football on TV and then going to a stadium and watching it in real life. You get to see so much more in that
Yeah.
area of vision, and it's the same on the table. You can see a lot more. You can start to move your tokens around while watching what's happening on the game. You don't have to constantly zoom here and zoom there. The flick of your eye to look at what's happening on the board to your card back up again is a hell of a lot easier than trying to do it on TTS. Flip side, looking at your opponent's cards, and we
Was
kind of talked about
just
this, didn't
about
we?
to say that. Yeah.
That's where I found in the past, especially as a beginner, somebody who doesn't necessarily know the game, being able to just constantly, whilst your opponent's doing what they're doing, they're talking about this and the other, you're like, hang on, what's that? Or they'll tell you something, and it's not that you don't trust them, but you're just looking at it to see how that relates to everything else. You don't have to ask them, oh, what exactly is that rule, or how does you can just hover your mouse over their character
Zoom in on it
card,
and yeah.
yeah, press Alt and it comes up and you go, oh, right, right, yeah. You don't get that unless you've got a folder full of all the cards there that you can constantly refer to. But I find, again, in previous games where if I'm playing somebody, Age of Sigmar, and I wasn't sure on some of their stuff, if I then start looking it up on my phone, because I had most of the battle terms on my phone, so I could easily zoom in and find it, that whole game experience starts to fall down a little bit in real life because fundamentally we're there to have an enjoyable game with another human being.
Yeah.
If the other human being is constantly on their phone looking at things or constantly looking in heading somewhere else looking at stuff, it can be a little bit off-putting. So I think you will start to see more of the people just asking, oh, so how does that work again? What exactly is that? Because you can't just quickly see your opponent's cards.
No, that was the one thing I found, like especially in the game against you, I was like, I can't even remember what half of these characters have got. Like you said, it's kind of so easy when you're playing TTS. It's just hover over while you're doing like a movement or something, and just have a quick read to know what could potentially happen.
Yeah,
But I mean, I suppose it comes with learning the game. As you play more, you will kind of remember what certain characters do. But I, I suppose it's one of them things where there are so many characters, and each character could have up to. I mean, I've still got the Scarlet Witch thing here, and it's got what 4 superpowers on here, and you're trying to remember all of that for all the different characters in the game. it's it can soon kind of get a bit too much. I found building a roster as well a bit more clunky, in the way of selecting who I wanted to use, because you're literally there against your, like, on the same table, and it's like, well,
Yes.
like, how do I do this? Not
In
secretly, but
But yeah, essentially in secret, isn't it? That's what you're trying to do because you know you don't want to give it away.
yeah,
Yeah, I found that the doing the crisis was nice and simple and easy.
yeah,
That was fine. But yeah, that bit where you kind of felt like I wanted to take a bit of a cardboard cut where you could just put up that three-side thing on the table there so they couldn't see what you're doing. Um, yeah, it'd be interesting to see how people go about doing that. Whether you turn your back to your opponent, again, seems really antisocial, but fine. Whether you just put them under, like say, in a book or something like that, because it will make a difference. Realistically, the more you play and the higher you play, know what your opponent's going to pick is, that's a large part of the game is trying to guess
trying to
based
work
on their
out what they're going to
roster,
choose.
what are they actually going to choose? What's going to come on the table? What do I need to go? If I know that they're definitely not going to go a certain way to create their team based on what their roster is, then I'll know, oh, right, I don't need that one, but I do need this one. So
Yeah,
I think it is a big part of the game, obviously for mess around with your mates, less so. But yeah, it was interesting. Um, and talking about that, it was enjoyable and yeah, a sense of pleasure I got from actually starting to use some of these things we spent a fair whack of money on, and starting to get the enjoyment out of those cards, out of the physical elements of it all.
yeah.
Um,
Um, I did find the amount of tokens a little bit overwhelming. Like, I think you take it for granted when you're on a TTS of like, oh yeah, I'll just drop that on there and put
yeah,
that there, and then suddenly you get to an actual game and you're like, I've got, what are all of these tokens? And you're trying to like keep your area clean and tidy, and all the crisis tokens as well, trying to find the right ones for that. It was just like, oh god, there's so many.
yeah, and we kind of talked about it as well. If you were in a five, well, even a three-game event, tournament, whatever you want to call it, and you're jumping from one table to the other, you're going to need a slick process to
Move
be able
everything
to,
around. Yeah.
yeah, move everything around and not end the day with everything everywhere. Um, which is a nice segue to something that we both had, not on the first game, but on the second one. So the second one um, we came around to my back garden. It was myself, you, Anth, and Josh came around, and
Yep.
we got a couple of games in there. That was where we were starting to spend a lot of time looking up at the sky and watch out for the rain. Um,
Massive black cloud that was looming over the table in like
yep.
round four. It's like, do we risk it for round five? Yeah, go on then.
And yeah, you got the right idea because Anthem myself, I got destroyed by Medusa with two hammers, basically walked through my force. Um, and so my game with Ant finished earlier than yours, and we re-racked and we started. I think we were halfway through turn one or round one, and it started to rain a tiny bit, and we said right, we'll just stick it away. You guys stuck it out, and actually it was the right decision because you were absolutely fine. Um, but before you arrived, we had a parcel delivery from BattleKiwi, who do a fantastic selection of battle boxes, and these are essentially MDF boxes where you get a top as such with selected design. There's some designs on the website. None of them are called cap, etc. But essentially, there's a shield that looks a lot like cap shield. There's a skull that looks a lot like the Cabal symbol. There is
Lots of different ones. There's a
Alexia, and there's a Spider-Man one.
yeah, I think there's some more as well. I'm trying to remember.
He's adding some for Deadpool as well.
Ah, that might have been the thing I saw
Yeah.
that was coming.
Um,
Um, we got some little fancy ones though.
we did. Well, we did. I got in contact with the guy. Very, very helpful and really good customer services. We got some nice Tales of Crisis ones. So if you see us out and about in any tournaments or events, you will see those. And then within the box you get, so as standard, you get 3 layers, shall we say, of card trays, and these basically allow you to put your character card in, and then on the side you've got little sections for power, so you can count up how much power you've got. Along the bottom is for health, and then there's a section for any um, crisis that you may have picked up.
Yeah.
And then you can, the way I did it, I'm not sure how you were doing it, but essentially I kept my damage tokens and any status tokens in the bottom bit,
Yeah, I did that.
used the
I had
command
a
target for that, and then went up there for those.
yeah.
Yeah.
They're really nice. They're great. I mean, the only one downside is the big 3 powers don't fit in it.
The 3 damage fits in the damage, but 3 power don't fit in those. But I don't mind that because again, it's hard to do on a podcast, but essentially there's 5 slots, and each slot you can put two
Oh, it's two
tokens
pack.
in.
I
And
yeah, I like that because it kind of gave you an idea of exactly what your
how much power you're
maximum
on.
quantity
Yes.
was. Yeah,
And unless you're running one of the Hulks, um, tens your limit. Tens your limit anyway, isn't it?
tends to limit anyway. It's just
Um,
damage
the
for
damage.
those. Yeah,
But again, you can fit your 3 damages in, so they
yeah,
kind of cover that. Then working your way through those, so yeah, they were really useful to allow us to track where we were. You also get a tray within the box that allows you to track your victory points and your turn, and it's where you can hold your measurement tools.
hmm
I'll be honest, I didn't use this. I've kept my measurement tools in there, and I'll use it to store those, but I do prefer the actual game tracking card, just purely because it
Oh, the
covers
victory.
both
Yeah,
for the victory
yeah,
points. I, yeah, I can see what they're trying to do here, but that I don't see myself using that much, which is fine. And then as standard, you get a tray for your tokens.
yeah.
So at the bottom, you will get a tray where you've got 12 sections for tokens, then you've got 2 sections for cards, so I've used that for my team tactics cards and my crisis cards, and then you've got a long section in there that you can put whatever you want in. I've used that for my dice, so I keep my dice in there. I've got my team tactics, my crisis cards, I've got my crisis tokens at the bottom. I went for the additional tray that also gives you another 24 small boxes to keep other tokens in, and I've used that for my
All right. Okay.
status tokens.
Yeah.
Um, I wasn't going to, but Lee kept going on about getting it and how much he thought it'd be useful, and he ended up ordering, and I thought, I'll see what it's like. And I'm very much on the fence. But I think it's good. It allows you, I don't think it's vital, but it does allow you to keep some separation between them all, and
Extra
I can
tokens.
see,
Yeah.
you only ever get more tokens. Every character pack seems to come with a wrath of
A new
tokens.
token section to add in. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I mean, we've only used them that one time. I thought they were fantastic. I really liked the design of it. That's what I saw the design on Instagram. And there's a number of designs out there from multiple companies, but I like the fact that you could clearly see how much power from across the table somebody had. And similarly with the damage, it was clear how much damage
Yeah.
your opponent had taken. So go and check them out, battlekiwi.com, I believe it is.
Yep.
Um, they've got a good selection of trays in there. They are from New Zealand, but actually, by the time we did a bulk order of about 8 or 9, and it came, I think, within a week, to be
It was
honest.
within a week. Yeah.
Yeah, of me putting the order in. So super quick. The postage wasn't too bad because it was a bulk order. if you and some friends want them, I highly recommend getting them. And the more we play those, the more those kind of things are gonna come into being.
Yeah, like I was like, oh, I don't know whether to get one. And then actually, when I looked at it, I was like, you know what? They do look quite cool. And then using it on Sunday, it was so handy to have. The character cards, like them actual cards, just to literally hold the card and have all the tracking of everything is perfect. And the fact that it's all magnetized as well, so it all kind of clips together and stayed in a big box. It's great. I mean, I just literally packed it all away, put it in my rucksack, and
Off you
carried
go.
it home. So
Yeah.
it's no, I really like them. So they are great. I'll probably do a video review of them at some point. Just do a quick overview of all the different layers. So have a look at that on the Tales of War Games YouTube channel.
Yep. And I'll stick a link in the show notes for that one, um, because I highly recommend them. They are great, and they are definitely worth checking out. I think Anth didn't get one, and when I was playing him over the weekend, one of the things he mentioned was when he had a number of power or damage tokens on his card, he was then having to move them around every time he tried to read the card.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't keep the card clean. Using these trays keeps the card clean. You can see what you need to see on your character card, and then you've got those. I suppose my one disappointment was that actually they don't have a nice little tray for Team Tactics cards. And having
All right.
seen
Yeah.
that TTS has just introduced one on TTS, I don't know whether you've noticed it. There's a nice
I
little
did notice that little
wooden
like
box for your Team Tactics cards,
yeah.
and I kind of looked at that and was like, yeah, that would be quite nice. That. Um, so maybe one day they'll put one of those in, and worth getting.
Yeah, I would like to say if they add one in and they create one and then we do a bulk order, it
Absolutely.
shouldn't be too bad to get shipped over. So no, we should point out that we've not been sponsored or paid by BattleKiwi to review them. We
Nope.
did literally pay them ourselves, buy them ourselves. So yeah. So honest feedback. The only thing I would say is we talked about this a little bit on Sunday at the end. We might have to find a little strap just to keep it secure.
Yes.
The magnets feel pretty secure, but I just have a feeling it will just take like one little nudge and then they suddenly come separate and everything goes. I'll open my bag and just have a bag full of tokens and dice at the bottom. So
I highly imagine mine being battered and well used and not thrown in a bag, but placed less than gently into a bag. Um, so yeah, we did talk about like how do you put some kind of belt or something around it just to stop it from coming out, because yeah, you always run the risk of that getting banged around and falling out.
yeah, but no, definitely recommend them. It's a good little accessory to have.
Yep. And kind of, as we mentioned as we were playing, we started to get to use the accessories. I've now sprayed all my measurement tools. I'm going to get them painted up. That's something I never really thought I would do, but again, it's kind of, you look at it and you think, well, we we kept getting them mixed up, and obviously with COVID and everything, you're trying to keep all your own stuff.
Yeah,
It's going to be interesting to see how things like tokens go when you're playing. Do you use your opponent's tokens? Do you combine with the crisis? Do you not? Again, yes, there are tokens in Age of Sigmar, but it's pretty clear who's got what. Um, and one of the things I found on Age of Sigmar is you you keep the tokens for yourself, whereas in MCP, often the special conditions that you're putting on your opponent's characters come in your box set.
yeah. You're
Now,
putting judgment on an opponent, and they're like, well, what does that look like?
yeah, I mean, they might know if they don't have Ronin and they don't have or Scarlet Witch, they're not going to have a judgment token. So then you're putting it on, and then the question then becomes: do you put the tokens on the table next to the character? That's kind of what we would do in Age of Sigmar. But again, Age of Sigmar, you've got bigger units that move less, I would say. Um, Whereas in this, maybe do you really want to have to constantly move tokens around with a character? Logically, you would put those tokens on your card, but then if you put a judgment token on your card and it's not actually yours, how do you know which ones are yours? You One thing I found is I've got millions of bleed tokens.
I found that as well.
Yeah, I was popping them all out, and I think I've got as many bleed as I've got power tokens. So if it was a bleed, I would just stick my own token on my own character and say, yeah, they've got bleed. But if it's something more random like judgment, and then like I say, when it comes to tidying up, how do you know who's to go? So
Yeah.
again, interesting. Is one of the reasons I want to get to some form of event soon to kind of start to see how the community does it, because we are coming out of hibernation into the real world, and it will be interesting to see how these things pan out.
Yeah, it will be interesting. I don't know how many events I'll get to, like personally, but just like I said earlier, playing actual physical games in the house, that's the one I'm looking forward to in 2 weeks' time.
Yes, and kind of I've said that I'll try and organize another day here where we can get a few more people here, and then if we can get in the house, that opens up another space for at least another 2 tables, so we could easily have 4 tables running here, and still not necessarily descend on the madness of my children running around. We can still keep it to one side. That was the main area of, as we say, real life, and we'll finish off with a couple of plugs. First and foremost, as we mentioned earlier on around other podcasts, there are a number of great content creators out there, not just podcasts, blogs, etc. And the best place to find those is across the Bifrost Nexus. So that is acrossthebifrost.com. You'll find ourselves on there. You'll find a number of others on there. Like I say, a really good collection of MC peers. I think is that our general term?
Yeah, I think so. MCPs?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Crises? No,
Crises? No, it doesn't quite work, does
no.
it? Um,
MCPs probably.
I'm sure somebody will come up with something. And as part of that, we have a new sponsor, Blackgate Games. I've used Blackgate Games a number of times. I placed an order over the weekend with them. I've got another 4 boxes coming, and interestingly, we didn't necessarily cover this, but one of the things I found was when I was, because I don't have all the boxes, unlike some people, um, I there were a couple of couple of team tactics cards that I use regularly on TTS that I didn't have. So what I found was that I've gone out and bought some boxes. My intention was always to get all the boxes. It was just a matter of time. So I've bought some boxes with characters that I'm not planning currently on running, but just for some of those cards. And I think I'm a big believer of supporting the company. It is an expensive purchase for some cards, but if you're going to play regularly with those cards, I think it's well worth getting. So you can support the company, get the artwork. Yeah, if it's something that you're likely to trial out once with some mates, yeah, you don't necessarily need to. But if something is you're going to use regularly, I mean, one of them was MedPack, which I would say 80% of the games I've ever played, I've had MedPack in my roster.
Yeah.
Such a great card. And some of the crisis cards that I was looking to put into my roster again, I wanted to get those ones, so I had them in real life. Yeah, Blackgate Games, fantastic company, great customer service, does good discounts. And I know the owner is very vocal in the community. You quite often see them on Facebook posting updates around stock, etc. Good contributor towards the community as a whole. I know they're going to be there at the London Grand Tournament, which I'm still on the fence as to whether I'm going to make it down. But yeah, go check them out. Blackgate Games in the UK. I'll put a link in the show notes for it. So, plans for the future? I think we were talking before. I'm not sure when you'll see it, but we are planning to do some battle reports.
We are. We're going to do a couple of test ones first and make sure that we can record them. And not that we can record them, but we can record them to a quality that we want to. I think that's the best way of putting it. So yeah, we're gonna kind of start recording on May the 17th or kind of that week when we can actually meet in the house. And then we'll kind of record a couple, see what they're like, and then we'll start properly producing them. So be on the lookout for those.
Yep, and we've still got the mini crisis continuing. I fortunately talking about real life has got in the way of that series, and it's been on a bit of a delay, but should be getting those back out next week. So we're part 2 into movement. So again, talking about that earlier on, neither of those characters had it, but there are a lot of characters out there that do. So go check those out. And your painting videos, we've still got some more to come from yourself on your how to paint Marvel Crisis Protocol.
Yeah, so we've got Punisher, which should be coming out this week. And depending when this episode comes out, it might already be out ahead of this podcast. So have a look on the Tales of Wargames YouTube for that. And then we've got Daredevil coming next week. And then I need to crack on and get some more done. I'm a bit like you, kind of real life has kind of got in the way of painting them. But no, I do have plans to do more. So if you do want to see specific characters, let us know, because I do have. I think I've done about 40% of the collection now painted. So if we've got a character that I haven't painted yet that you want to paint, want me to do a painting tutorial on, let us know, and I'll be sure to do it in a future episode.
Sounds excellent. I'll definitely be checking out your Daredevil one because I built him today.
He's probably the easiest one, so
Spray
there's
him
lots
red.
of reds and washers and stuff like that. So that's the joys with the painting videos. They're kind of like they're aimed at not beginners, but beginners can use them as well, but probably intermediate. But they're kind of explained nice and easy, and no airbrushes as well. So it's yeah.
I can't live without my airbrush these days, unfortunately.
There's too many. I kind of respect anyone who puts out YouTube painting videos because I know how long they take to record, but I kind of always got annoyed when they're like, right, this is a nice, easy paint scheme. Right, get your airbrush out and do like 4 different glazes. I was like, okay.
Yeah, nah,
Maybe not.
It's definitely takes some getting used to, and I think there's many levels. Some of the videos out there where you've got people using airbrushes to do highlights that I couldn't even do with a normal brush.
Yeah.
Fair play to those guys, but I do tend to use it for my base colors because I'm just lazy like that.
If I could work out how to use mine properly without it blocking every time,
There
I
is
would
that.
probably set it up. But no, by the time it takes me to do that, I could probably paint the model. So yeah.
But no, I'm definitely gonna look to up my painting because I really enjoyed putting out the models and again using them in real life. Having painted them, most of my Asgardians a while ago. I've only got Angela left to go. It was great to have them on the table. They've literally been in a box since I painted them.
Yeah.
Thankfully, not gathering dust, but not seeing the tabletop. And so it kind of inspired me to crack on and get painting some more because it does when you've got it all together on the tabletop with the scenery and all painted up looking like that, it is a really great visual experience. You've got all these superheroes. We say it all the time, but on TTS, that's the one thing that TTS does lose a little bit. It will never quite have the same impact as when you've got your own painted models on the tabletop.
100%. Yeah. It's yeah, agreed. When like you said, putting those models out for the first time on the table and going, oh, this actually looks quite nice for painted models. It's definitely a great feeling, and it kind of just adds to the kind of cinematography of the battlefield almost.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
Yeah.
Excellent. Right. Well, thank you very much. If you would like to catch either of us on the social medias, I'm at martinswaffield on both Twitter and Instagram. And you are?
At Tales of Wargames on Instagram, Twitter, and the YouTube channel.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for listening. Well done for getting this far, and good night.
Take care.